I'm CraigO, and join me on my adventures with CraigO's cryptocurrency as we cover the blockchain, Web3, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. Interviewing the best in the industry, giving tips and tricks, and also sharing with you projects that I'm most excited about. You're watching CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. Today, I am live for the first time in Downtime TV studio at the Knowlton building in Bridgeport. So I wanted to come to you guys today and talk about empathy in a bear market. It's a very challenging time for a lot of people who got involved in cryptos and NFTs in the Web3 space, who looked maybe to maybe get the money that they got in 2021, where you could pretty much in 2021 go into most any project and the opportunity to make money was very clear, and it was there at every turn. And this year has been a lot different. Projects are starting to figure out how they're going to navigate the space. The communities are, I think, forging together, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today will kind of give you some insight. So if you're a newbie or a beginner, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the store of value and versus the house of information. And I think there are two very big differences. So I want to start on, what am I doing right now? I think that's most important, right? So when you come on, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my knowledge and what I'm doing in this space. So I right now am cost averaging in on some of my projects, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that and why I believe in not just the blockchain technology, but the technology of some of the companies that I'm going into. And then I'm always going to say to you guys, do your due diligence. Digital assets are extremely important, and for the reason that it creates a unique place in the space. And by that, NFT projects, communities will offer utility, or there'll be value in that, whether it's exclusivity, membership access, ability to actually have utility within that NFT project, which is its own developed economy, and then being able to swap out within a liquidity pool. So I'm going to throw some things at you guys today. Just take some notes, and then obviously go back onto Twitter and some of the other social platforms. I'll tell you where I get a lot of my information and research from. Sometimes it's just as simple as our friend Google. The correlation, I don't want to be over leveraged. And I think about that a lot. And by that, I have an income as a realtor, and I look at what comes in my monthly bills, what my cost of living is. And then I decide responsibly where I want to be. There are some people who have literally put everything into it, and right now they're getting completely decimated. Hence why I say empathy in a bear market is have a level of compassion and understanding, even when people might have made some decisions then that they, of course, wouldn't make right now. I do see this as a heck of an opportunity to start to learn and collect information, because I do see us in the bear market for quite some time. And it's not just me, it's people that are way smarter than I am saying that, publicly. And it's very interesting when I go on to whether it's social media or I set up my Google alerts. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's been a very big help for me. It's allowed me to be able to then get that information in the morning and disseminate what it is that I want to not only learn, conceptualize, and then be able to hopefully articulate to you, my audience. I take my 5 top projects and I average in, depending on, again, back to the income. So that's probably the first thing that I want you to know is what my mindset is around this. It's not everyone. Some people will just put a little money here and a little money there, and maybe they'll get lucky. But I think it's way more than just what can you make. I think it's what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years, and an internet overhaul. It's going to be a massive change. And I think people have to start to prepare for that and understand, just like you take for granted that you can hop onto Facebook and you know how to do a post, or you know how to put up a story. If in the 80s or early 90s, I had given you a cell phone and I said, just turn it on, the simple fact of turning it on would have been so overwhelming that the idea for mass adoption, and I've talked about this many of times and I'll continue to, the centralized idea, right? Because I think it's just an idea, and I'll tell you why a little bit further as we go on. But the centralized ideas such as Coinbase, Nifty Gateway, this is all great when you don't need to go decentralized finance with your private wallet like a MetaMask, or using a cold wallet like a Ledger or a Trezor. But that's going way farther than most beginners and intermediates have a level of getting to comfortability. When do you become an expert in this space? I don't know. I'm always humbled. I'm learning every day. I do want to say, let's go to the house of information. And by that, I'm going to, towards the end, give you where I get most of my information from. And then I will challenge that information within my alpha groups. So yesterday, I had on a couple days ago, I actually had on Malcolm Wilson, and we had a great interview, and we talked about the VB app, and we went into great detail. And it is very much a centralized platform that will be at some point very Web3 friendly, but most people can download this app. Most people can figure out how, if they wanted to convert USD into gems on their app, it's very easy. And then they have a lot of really great collections. But yesterday, there was one of my buddies who had the first VB drop, Todd Batman, and they also had a Superman. And I was going to go back into it, but then I realized that I probably didn't want to lock my money up. So I think I'm going to hold on that. And as the market starts to go down, I'm thinking about what projects do I want to get into? Where do I want to lock my money up? And where do I want to have instantaneous opportunity for liquidity if and when I need it? Now, mind you, I'm not putting money in to get out. I have that diamond's mind, diamond hands approach, and I believe it's really important. There's a lot of people who play day trading, play instant flipping, being able to swap between projects. I try to stay as far away from that as possible. It gets a little bit confusing after a while. So the DeFi markets, why are they connected to the stock market or overall economy? And I say, well, less of DeFi. Why is crypto and NFT connected? I'd say that there's a lot of big institutional money and big investors like Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy. That is a company that provides business intelligence and mobile software and cloud-based services. His company was valuated at $2.5 billion. Now, he purchased about 115,000 worth of Bitcoin. And it's about an average worth about $4 billion at a cost of about 30,000 per token. I believe that cost evaluation right now is about 2.9 billion at the time of this recording on June 15th. And he says that he's not going to sell, but again, he has investors to make happy. And a lot of things do continge around Bitcoin and Ethereum because those are the most known or notable in the space. And, on one of my last podcasts, I talk about the things in Web3. And I talk about how PayPal and some of the other apps allow you to purchase cryptocurrency. And PayPal is doing a lot more with it now these days. I said my only concern with the centralized platform is that there are a lot of fees. And so the idea of centralized, which is sort of Web2 friendly, you can get on just like you can get into any other website, like you'd get into your bank account. That's all Web2 connected directly to one server versus multiple nodes throughout the entire world. That's sort of a Web3 delineation, is that Web3 it's a bunch of nodes. There's not like one server. So if you go in and unplug that server, that website then goes down. That's not what the blockchain and Web3 is about. So there are many different, I guess I'd say, validators throughout the world. Decentralized, what is supposed to be the difference between them? I don't know at this moment that I can really tell you, other than, if you have a DeFi wallet or a cold wallet, such as a Ledger or a Trezor, and your keys are offline, you have private and public keys. Your public keys are always online, but your private key, if you have a hot wallet, it's online, but it's not as accessible. It's kind of like putting the key under the mat. Someone would have to know to look under the mat. If they find out where to look, your funds might be gone. With a cold wallet, your keys are completely offline because you have this device where you get to validate a transaction before it goes. And if you get hooked in with a bad transaction, that can be a problem. A lot of the learning, though, on how to learn about a cold wallet or to learn about a hot wallet, to learn about MetaMask, I've mentioned this podcast in particular because they've been very good on it. It's called Whiteboard Crypto. They've been so good at that when I came into this space to do my podcast, I realized that what I wanted to do, and my greatest strength for you guys, was to do interviews and project reviews, to grab data and analysis, and then just talk about the things in Web3 in a generalized basis, and have really informative interviews were probably the most important, where I was showing you guys and continuing to show you guys just how amazing some of these projects are and why you want to take an interest, even if it's not putting your money into some of these things. And again, This is never going to be a podcast about financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I challenge to manage my own funds and my family's funds, that I'm not there to manage anyone else's. So the idea between a centralized and decentralized world, the idea of DeFi is no government needed, no government regulation. But at the end of the day, these markets are moving fairly in tandem. So I'm challenged by that, even in my own thought, as I articulate that to you. I do want to talk about a centralized platform, Celsius. They shut down their platform from their holders, and they hold about $8 billion in crypto assets with 1.7 million users. So we all know about Coinbase. Celsius might be a little less popular. I don't know what the numbers of Coinbase are. I do have Coinbase. I do have Voyager. Those are centralized platforms. So when they hold your crypto, that they have it in their governance wallet. So their custodial wallet. There we go, custodial wallet. And so it's under their custody and management. Now you can then sometimes be able to transfer out and put it into your DeFi wallets, such as MetaMask. There are other wallets out there, Trust Wallet. So learn about these wallets. But just my first little tidbit is just go on to Whiteboard Crypto. They have a great explanation tutorial. It's got tons of followers. I'm a huge fan. And again, shouting out great leaders in the podcast space as it concerns Web3 is super important to me. But, Celsius literally shut down their users from allowing to exit or withdraw their funds. And this became because Ethereum right now is, from what I understand, and if I stand corrected, believe me, I'll come back on this podcast and say it, but Ethereum 2.0 is going to be coming on layer 2. And the reason for that, for those of you that don't know, is if you've ever done a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, what ends up happening is the gas fees are so exorbitantly high. At minimum, I've probably spent $8 to $10 on a transaction. At most, $200 on a transaction. That might be to mint a digital asset, which is an NFT. And then other times, maybe it's just a transfer or just swap cryptos. If I had a cryptocurrency that I just wanted to swap back into ETH, or swap it back to USD and then throw it back into my Coinbase account and then cash it out into my bank account. So there's like 5 or 6 different steps. And that's why this mass adoption idea hasn't really happened yet. Because if you would just follow that last minute of my conversation and you start to conceptualize how it's actually done, once you start to do it, you start to figure it out. The problem is you don't want to get in over your head on some of these things. So safeguard investments. I don't see the blockchain there just yet. I mean, obviously, we are in a bear market. I'm much more optimistic about this space now than when I got in 2017. There were 3 tokens on Coinbase at the time: Ethereum, we had Bitcoin, and we had Litecoin. Litecoin you'd never hear about. But those were the 3 primary coins. Now Coinbase has a lot more than that. I think 40 to 50 coins, maybe more. I don't know. But I think the biggest part is I had at some point put in X number of dollars, and it literally doubled literally overnight. And then maybe a month or 2 later, it dropped. I was like, I'm going to be rich. And so that's not how that works out. But I think now into a bear market, I understand the technology. I understand the communities. I understand sort of the cadence of what to look for in different projects, meaning as far as how people are talking, if there's an injection of FUD. So by cadence, I mean that, if I hear a FUD after every, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that's FUD, for those of you that don't know. So if I hear doubt in every other tweet, or I hear it in the Discord channel, I start to get a little concerned, because this is a time where projects need to come together, band together, be positive, support their communities. Secondary sales are important, obviously, the native token for any project. And the native token, so for an example, if I'm in Knights of Degen, so today I did a little tweet where I said somebody wanted to offer me 0.17 ETH. Now I purchased that for 0.25 ETH. I'm not selling it for less, nor am I selling my project, because I love that community. I love what they mean. I love what they represent in the space. So check out Knights of Degen, really cool project. So, what is stable, right? So the idea of a stable coin, you might have heard in the news, Janet Yellen was talking about Terra Luna and their stable coin UST, and how it depegged from the US dollar, but it wasn't depegged from the US dollar. And it really wasn't a stable coin. It was an algorithmic stable coin. So the health of that token was connected to that of Terra Luna. And when that whole ecosystem went down, they're trying to build back up, but they lost a lot of consumer confidence. And there was a lot of big money in that project, a lot of money. And I think this is a time to take to learn. So I want to talk to you about how I research NFT and crypto projects. And there's probably like 4 or 5 different platforms that I go on. But first is I go into Twitter, set up your Twitter account if you don't have one, and literally go into Twitter Spaces and look into AMAs. AMAs are just going to talk about their projects. They're going to talk about what they're doing, what the roadmap is. So I feel like if you can get involved in NFT communities on Twitter, that costs you nothing, right? But that's what that knowledge will allow you to feel confident enough to apply that. And so Twitter's been probably my strongest space to learn and grow and see what big people in the space are doing, what they're talking about. The other thing that I do is every morning, I set up a thing called Google Alerts. So if you go into your tab search bar and you type in Google Alerts, it'll pull up your account immediately. And then you can just start to pick and choose your news feed. What's interesting lately about Google Alerts as it relates to crypto and NFT projects, just like the rest of the world with real estate, with stock market, you name it, is it's all the bad news. It's all the FUD, right? So we see this. And for me, I just look at it and I say, okay, well, where's the opportunity in the bad or the negative? And so I'll look at these Google Alerts. It could be something, I don't know, on say Wilder token. This is still a great token. It's dropped heavily in price. Maybe it's going to be one of the tokens that I'm going to average into over the next few months. I don't think that this bear market's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think, potentially Bitcoin could take a dip again and again. We'll see. I mean, who knows? At one point, Bitcoin, I think, reached around $3,000 in 2020. And then obviously, I think it was the beginning of 2020. And then by the summertime of last year, I think it was around $60,000. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm correct. The other one that I do is I go into my alpha groups. That's via calls, texts, WhatsApp, and people that I've made friends with through Twitter, just through the space, through introductions. Hey, this person likes crypto. Hey, they have a wallet. Oh, this is cool. Let's talk about it. What projects are you into? What communities? And so you start to understand. Now, I do want to explain just a quick difference between NFTs and cryptocurrency. For those, the newbies that are probably just tuning in now, and this is our first live, NFTs are a digital asset. And so a non-fungible token cannot be fractionalized. So if I buy one art piece, say I buy this water bottle as a picture, right? It's actually a receipt of a picture, which we'll talk about in a second. So I buy this. If I go to sell this, I can't cut the top off and fractionalize it. With a cryptocurrency, I can fractionalize it. So that's probably the big delineation. They're both tokens. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, one last person. I got to give him a shout out. Shelly Palmer, very good in the space. He has his own Discord channel, has his own Twitter channel. Super awesome guy. I really like the content that he puts out. He puts out challenging questions, and he just very good with his blog content. So I highly recommend that you check him out. Right, conceptualization, right? So think of NFTs as a digital receipt. So you don't necessarily own the item, and that's sort of where the challenge gets. And I think Shelly Palmer had written about this or did a blog about it. You actually have a receipt. You've purchased a receipt to that item, but you don't own that item. That's why there's not really a copyright type of thing. These receipts do have value. This is why copyright infringement can't happen in the space currently. But again, anything in the wild west of Web3 can happen at any time. I think we also talked about private versus public keys. So your private keys, cold wallet, your private keys will be offline. Your hot wallet or your MetaMask wallet, your private keys are online, but they're not accessible unless you make them accessible, but they're much more easier to locate. And so that's just something that you can empty out one wallet if you have someone's private keys. If you have their seed phrase, you can empty out their entire wallet. So the seed phrase is 12 to 24 generated words in numerical order. So this is something for you to know. And by the way, if you ever set up a wallet, just one little piece of advice, don't back it up onto Google Drive. Hackers are very, very good. And don't worry, they can get to your computer incredibly quickly. Not only can they get to it quickly, but they'll be able to find your seed phrase and your private key or public key or private key, actually, if you leave it on there. What was the hardest thing for me to conceptualize? I think that's a daily thing for me. And the reason that it's so daily is because there's so much to learn in this space. And I would say I'm learning a level of tech. For me, one of the things that I've always told you guys about that's super important, and now that it's my first live today, is social currency. So as you get and engage on Twitter and Discord, and if you don't have Discord, Discord is busy. And the other little tidbit on Discord is turn off your DMs. Most of the great scams, I mean, amazing scams, happen in Discord. And it's not a shout out to the people that are scamming, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you got me. And so one of the things that we talked about on our last podcast, that if you ever get into the space, proceed with caution. If you didn't create an action, be more pessimistic than optimistic in that regard. But a lot of the learning before you ever put a dime of your hard-earned money into this space is for you to learn. And a lot of that's going to be on Twitter and Discord, and just start asking those questions. There's no such thing as a bad question. And so that's, to me, is the most important. So I just want to go over one more time. I'll just give you a quick definition, right? Private key is usually an access key to just one address account, while a seed phrase can access the entire wallet, which can hold multiple addresses. So in my MetaMask, I have about 4 or 5 wallets. If they get my seed phrase, my wallet's gone. If they get my private key, then just one of those accounts are gone, because the private key has each wallet has its own unique private key, to my understanding. So I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to just hop on my first live and just kind of share some really great content with you guys on all that's going on. I think the learning is the most important thing. Hopping into the house of information, please connect with me, like and subscribe on my channels, my YouTube. We've got some really great interviews coming up. One of the interviews that was most notable in my mind, as it just comes to top, is Bill Ottman. He's going to actually be having his Minds conference coming up. I think that's on the 25th. Am I right on that? I got the head nod that I'm right on the 25th Minds conference. And he's just talking about a lot of really great things. The Minds app, I highly recommend you guys to check it out. They've got 5 million subscribers. Definitely some different content, but from people from left, right, center, coming in, just sharing their thoughts and ideas. And what I love about Web3 is it brings everybody into the space, and it will create some tremendous opportunities over the next 5 to 10 years, and possibly even sooner than that. But I think it's just about a lot of learning. And so my podcast channel is going to have some of the most amazing interviews. That's one of the things I'm most proud about. And as I continue to learn in this space, I want to share with you some great things in Web3. I hope I was able to do that on today's live. Please reach out to me with any feedback or any information that you have that can help to make my podcast channel better. I love you guys. Have a great rest of your day.